So there was one question that I had after episode 3 of House of the Dragon, and that was exactly how Laenor Valerion was able to ride a dragon. Now, totally get it. We've seen, of course, we saw it in Game of Thrones, where there's a possibility that, hey, people that are not of the direct blood, basically the Y chromosome, I guess, of the house of the Targaryen line, are able to ride dragons. Are able to ride dragons. Ones that have different names. Now, I would argue that this, to a certain extent, lessens what a Targaryen actually is. It lessens it simply because, look, if you've even done just basic genealogy over your family tree, you probably understand this simple truth that we as human beings have a very, very large family tree, even very early on. Like you go back 2-3 generations, you're dealing with hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And that is where my biggest problem actually occurs when it comes to this revelation, is because if he can ride a dragon, then does anybody that have any amount of Targaryen blood, can they ride a dragon? Let's go ahead and let's read this article and you make a decision on your own about what you think about it. But let's just go ahead and let's get started. It says, despite not being a true Targaryen, Laenor Valerian skillfully rides a dragon in the House of the Dragon, Episode 3 ending. In the Game of Thrones timeline, only those with the House Targaryen family blood are thought to be able to ride dragons, which became another way to prove Jon Snow's heritage. However, House of the Dragon breaks this rule for a period of time by revealing that dragon riding isn't entirely exclusive to House Targaryen. House of the Dragon's first few episodes had already depicted major Targaryen characters on Dragonback, including Princess Rhaenyra on Syrax and Prince Daemon on Caraxes. With the animals also being on the Targaryen sigil, dragons are heavily associated with House Targaryen as a symbol of their conquering of Westeros. Continued taming of the creatures and heritage carried over from being a powerful dragon lord family in Old Valyria. As such, it may have been shocking for those who haven't read George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood to see Laenor of House Valerian flying on sea smoke and uttering the familiar High Valyrian command Dracarys in House of the Dragon's War for the Stepstones. The reason for Laenor's Valerian's possession of an ability to ride a dragon is that his mother is Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, who was a runner-up for King Jaehaerys' first Targaryen heir to the Iron Throne. I don't really understand what even the title of this article basically kind of talks about the heirs. I don't know if they're trying to say that a dragon can therefore understand that somebody is an heir to the throne, so therefore they respect that specific Targaryen more. I don't really understand what they're trying to go with that. With Rhaenys being considered for the next queen, it makes sense that she would have insisted on her children carrying on her dragon riding talents. Additionally, it may be Laenor and Laena Valerian's pure Valyrian blood on both sides of their family that allows them to ride dragons, especially since their heritage assists in knowledge of commands for the dragons. Okay, House Valerian would have been incredibly dangerous family if they controlled the boats and then they controlled the dragons. So it's kind of odd that Viserys or somebody would have allowed that to have occurred. Simply because that's just a danger at that point. Because you've got somebody that's basically over the Navy, and then you've got somebody that's over the air. So basically, they could be wiped out on all fronts by House Valerian if they had a dragon, which almost makes it even more scary that she almost took the throne, because what would that have meant for Westeros in general? Like, that would have cemented, basically House Valerian or House Targaryen on that throne forevermore, because there would have been no escaping them at that point. They would have been the best of the best at everything that occurs. So, I mean, I just feel like that's kind of an interesting kind of thing to think about, is what if Rhaenys would have been chosen? What would have that have meant for, I don't know, House Targaryen and Westeros in general? Would, as much as I'm not a big fan of her, that would have really assured up a lot of House Targaryen's flaws by having a strong navy at their disposal, like what they had. So that would have been, that's kind of a little bit interesting to think that maybe she was teaching her children dragon riding, along with, of course, their abilities and talents when it comes on the sea. Additionally, it may be Laenor and Laena Valerian's pure Valerian blood on both sides of their family that allows them to ride dragons, especially since their heritage assists in knowledge of commands for the dragons. Laenor also won't be the last Valerian in House of the Dragon to ride one of the creatures, as several more characters in this family with Targaryen mothers or very little Targaryen blood at all will soar the skies on dragonback. Now that's very concerning to me. That's very concerning when it says "or very little Targaryen blood at all will be able to soar the skies." You have a show about the greatness of House Targaryen, but now you allow anybody and everybody to ride the dragons. Okay. What makes them so special? Is it really like Rhaenyra said? There's nothing special about them. They're not gods, they're men. Well, that's not what a lot of Westeros believes about the Targaryens. They believe that they are almost supernatural beings because they can ride dragons. That's what has kept them in power for so long, is that not just that belief, but that ability. So that to me is just a very odd thing to have anybody and everybody being able to ride dragons. It don't bode well for this show in the future. Really don't. And you know what? As happy as I am with what this show is right now, I am really concerned about the future once Viserys is gone and once Rhaenyra and, War of the Dragons basically does start occurring. Because I don't know how great this show is going to be when you take away the one thing that makes House Targaryen unique, and everybody does it for the sake of fun storytelling. I don't know about that. Another thing that confused me during this episode was when Daemon was on the ground and he was fighting the crab feeder and his men. And the crab feeder kept looking up in the sky. And I kept wondering, why is the crab feeder looking up in the sky when Daemon is right here? Right here. So does that mean it either means one of two things? I guess it could be seen as one of two things. That he was either afraid of the dragon just by itself without a rider, going in there and killing all of them, or he knew that secret that anybody with Targaryen blood, including the Valerians, could ride the dragons. But if that's the case, it almost kind of makes you wonder why Rhaenys didn't steal a dragon or two. Because if you just had even one dragon, just one dragon to go along with that, that navy that they've got, that's a pretty formidable thing. I don't know if Viserys could have, even with the number of dragons, could have even have come against that. That's kind of an interesting thing to put out there, because, he would have had, of course, his brother Daemon, and then he would have had Rhaenyra, but Rhaenyra was really young. So I don't know if that would have necessarily been the case with Rhaenyra. So, I don't know. It would have been a really weakened state. So it was a really kind of iffy thing about whether or not giving Rhaenys the throne. About, hey, she gets one dragon, it's over at that point. But I just thought this was a really interesting revelation that now anybody and everybody can ride a dragon. I don't know if I like that. I really don't. Because, you know, that's what made Daenerys so interesting of a character in Game of Thrones, is because she was the only one that could command the skies. Like, she was unique and different. She had a bond with the dragon, for goodness sakes. Something that no one else alive could do. Well, except maybe Jon Snow. And so I guess we kind of had our answer a little bit, you know, when it come to Jon Snow. But it just was really odd to see Laenor Velaryon ride that dragon. And I personally, in my personal opinion, almost kind of feels like in the long run, it lessens the show for a really great action scene. And that's just my point. Let me know in the comments down below. What did you think? Was you in favor of Laenor Velaryon riding a dragon, or do you believe that it lessens what the Targaryens actually are by him doing so? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.